Dr. Sarah Hayes stood before the towering crystalline spires of the Galactic Council's Research Station Omega, her heart pounding with equal measures of excitement and apprehension. After 3 years of rigorous screening, she had become the first human accepted into the Council's prestigious xenorteological program. The floating city-sized station orbited a distant pulsar, its vast laboratories home to the greatest scientific minds in known space. The station's atmospheric shield shimmered above her, refracting the pulsar's light into cascading waves of purple and blue. Sarah adjusted the environmental suit that had been custom-made for her primitive human physiology. The Council races, with their centuries of genetic engineering and technological enhancement, viewed unmodified humans as barely more than clever animals. But Sarah was about to prove them wrong. "Welcome, Dr. Hayes," a melodious voice echoed in her mind. A Thessian floated toward her, its translucent body pulsing with patterns of bioluminescence that formed words in perfect English. "I am Chief Researcher Nixus. Your arrival has generated significant discussion among the staff." Sarah straightened her shoulders, recognizing the diplomatic pause in Nixus's statement. "I imagine it has. I'm grateful for the opportunity to contribute to the Council's research." Indeed. Nix's inner lights shifted to a pattern indicating mild amusement, though some question what contribution an unaugmented organic mind could offer to our work. As Nix's led her through the station's curved corridors, Sarah observed dozens of alien species working in perfect harmony. Quantum computers interfaced directly with enhanced minds, processing vast amounts of data from archaeological sites across the galaxy. She felt like a Stone Age human walking through a modern laboratory. The central research chamber took her breath away. A massive holographic display showed thousands of artifact sites across the galaxy, each pulsing with data streams that the enhanced researchers processed at impossible speeds. In the center floated a peculiar object, a twisted mass of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. "This is why you're here," Nixus explained, gesturing to the object, the predecessor artifact. "Found buried in the core of a dead world, our most advanced systems cannot decode its purpose or origin. The Council believes a different perspective might be valuable." Sarah approached the display, studying the artifact's strange configurations. While other researchers interfaced directly with the quantum computers, she pulled out an old-fashioned tablet and stylus. The action drew curious looks from nearby aliens. "Sometimes the old ways have value," she explained, sketching the artifact's curves. "Human brains evolved to recognize patterns in nature. We still see things machines might miss." A crystalline being Sarah recognized as a Vex scholar emanated waves of skepticism. "Your species only achieved spaceflight a century ago. The predecessors vanished millions of years before your kind walked upright." Sarah didn't respond immediately, her attention caught by something in the artifact's structure. She walked around the hologram, comparing angles, making notes. A pattern was emerging, one that reminded her of something she'd seen in nature back on Earth. "What if we've been approaching this wrong?" she asked, excitement building in her voice. "Everyone's been analyzing this as technology, but look at these recurring spirals. They're almost identical to the growth patterns of nautilus shells on Earth. What if this isn't a machine, but something that grew?" The chamber fell silent. Dozens of enhanced minds turned to examine her observation. Nix's bioluminescence flared with sudden interest. "Impossible," the Vex scholar declared. "The predecessors were masters of synthetic engineering. All evidence indicates." "All evidence has been interpreted through the lens of our assumptions," Sarah interrupted, her passion overwhelming her diplomatic training. "But look, these patterns repeat fractally, just like organic growth. We're so advanced, we forgot to consider something simple." Nixus floated closer to the hologram, inner lights pulsing rapidly. "Intriguing. Our quantum analysis never considered biological algorithmic patterns. Perhaps there is value in maintaining some minds in their original state." Sarah smiled, knowing this was just the beginning. She might lack the technological enhancements of her colleagues, but humans had something just as valuable: the ability to think differently, to see patterns where others saw only chaos. As she began working with the team to reanalyze the artifact from this new perspective, she couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity might be young, but they had earned their place among the stars. 3 weeks after her breakthrough, Dr. Sarah Hayes found herself leading a specialized research team aboard Station Omega. The predecessor artifact had been relocated to a dedicated laboratory where it floated in a containment field, its dark surface now covered with a network of bioscanning sensors. Sarah stood before the main display, surrounded by holographic data streams that her colleagues processed through their neural interfaces. She alone relied on her natural vision, scanning printouts and hand-drawn diagrams spread across an old-fashioned workspace that had been synthesized specifically for her use. "The biological growth patterns are confirmed," announced Zenith 9, a hyper-intelligent AI housed in a sleek mechanical body. "But we're still unable to determine the artifact's purpose or the nature of the organism that created it." Sarah rubbed her tired eyes, a very human gesture that drew curious looks from her enhanced colleagues. She had been working for 18 hours straight, driven by an intuition she couldn't quite articulate. Something about the artifact's structure nagged at her consciousness, like a word on the tip of her tongue. "Can we adjust the quantum resonance scan?" she asked, sketching another diagram. "There's something about these deeper layers that reminds me of neural pathways." Nixis, who had become her strongest advocate on the station, pulsed with interest. "The quantum scanner is already at maximum resolution. The enhanced researchers can process the data directly." "That's just it," Sarah interrupted, excitement building in her voice. "We're processing everything digitally, looking at the data as discrete packets. But biological systems aren't digital. They're analog, continuous, with patterns that flow into each other." She pulled up an old Earth reference on her tablet. "Look at this MRI scan of a human brain. See how the neural pathways create these distinctive patterns. Now look at the artifact's internal structure when we view it as a continuous flow rather than digital packets." The room fell silent as the comparison displayed on the main hologram. The similarity was striking. Layers of interconnected pathways, branching and reconnecting in complex but organic patterns. "Impossible," Zenith 9 declared. "The predecessors were masters of synthetic technology. They transcended biological limitations." "Or that's what we assumed," Sarah countered. "Because it's the path most advanced civilizations take. But what if they went in a different direction? What if, instead of abandoning biology, they found a way to grow synthetic materials using biological principles?" She approached the artifact, studying its dark surface with naked eyes, while her colleagues processed vast amounts of data through their enhancements. Sometimes, she had learned, the human brain's ability to make intuitive leaps outpaced even the most advanced AI's logical processing. "The structure isn't just similar to a brain," she said slowly. "It's preserving something. Information, maybe, or consciousness itself." Nix's bioluminescence flared with sudden understanding. "A biological data storage system. Not digital encoding, but actual neural patterns preserved in synthetic material. That's why our quantum computers couldn't decode it," Sarah explained, her heart racing. "They were looking for data packets, but this is more like a frozen thought. A memory preserved in artificial neurons." The implications hit the research team like a shockwave. If Sarah was right, they weren't looking at a piece of technology. They were looking at a fragment of a predecessor's preserved consciousness. All their attempts to interface with it had failed because they were speaking the wrong language, using digital signals to communicate with an analog mind. "We need to completely redesign our approach," Sarah said, already sketching new ideas. "Instead of digital probes, we need something that can interface with neural patterns directly, something that can think the way they thought." Zenith 9's mechanical form shifted with what might have been discomfort. "You are suggesting we attempt to communicate with it, biologically?" "Exactly." Sarah looked around at her enhanced colleagues, seeing them in a new light. All of your improvements are amazing, but they're based on digital technology. Maybe that's why you couldn't see this. Sometimes the original design has advantages of its own. As the team began recalibrating their equipment and rethinking their entire approach to the artifact, Sarah felt a profound sense of validation. Humanity's primitive organic minds had revealed something that centuries of technological advancement had missed. Perhaps there was more than one path to understanding the universe's deepest mysteries. The artifact seemed to pulse slightly in its containment field, as if responding to their new understanding. Sarah couldn't help but wonder what memories, what knowledge, what consciousness lay frozen in its synthetic neurons. They were about to find out, and humanity's unique perspective had been the key to unlocking the door. The first warning came as a subtle fluctuation in Station Omega's quantum field generators. Sarah noticed it only because she wasn't neurally linked to the station's systems. Her human senses picked up the almost imperceptible change in the air's static charge, while her enhanced colleagues remained focused on their work with the artifact. "Something's wrong," she said, looking up from her diagrams. "The containment field is." The artifact pulsed, emitting a wave of energy that no sensor had predicted. Station Omega's systems crashed in cascading failure, plunging the research chamber into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the suddenly silent laboratory. Neural networks offline. Zenith 9's voice crackled, the AI's mechanical body moving jerkily without its usual grace. Station-wide system failure, unable to access main computer. Around the chamber, Sarah's enhanced colleagues struggled to function without their neural interfaces. The Thescian's bioluminescence dimmed to almost nothing. The Vex crystalline forms became sluggish, and even Nyx's seemed disoriented without access to the station's vast data networks. The artifact, Sarah realized, moving toward the containment field. When we adjusted our scanning approach to match its biological patterns, it must have responded, like an immune system reacting to a probe. Impossible to verify without computer access, one of the Vex researchers said, their crystalline form vibrating with distress. All our enhancement interfaces are down. We can't even process basic data. Sarah looked around the chamber, seeing her highly evolved colleagues struggling with suddenly primitive conditions. Their technological enhancements, usually an advantage, had become a liability. But she had never relied on neural interfaces or enhanced processing. Her human brain, unchanged for millennia, was still fully functional. "We don't need computers for everything," she said, grabbing her paper diagrams. "Look, the artifact's energy pulse followed these neural-like pathways we mapped. If it's truly a biological system, it might be cycling through a defensive response, like a fever in a human body." "Fascinating theory," Zenith 9 commented, "but without access to station systems, we cannot prevent catastrophic containment failure. Station Omega will begin losing orbital stability in approximately 47 minutes. Sarah's mind raced, calling upon humanity's oldest advantage, the ability to solve problems with limited tools. The artifact responded to biological patterns. Maybe we can communicate with it the same way. Not with computers, but with something more organic. She approached the containment field, studying the artifact's pulsing surface. "Nyxis, your bioluminescence, can you still control it without your neural interface?" "Barely," Nyxis responded, generating a weak pattern of lights. "But it's an autonomous biological function, yes. The artifact's internal structure mimics neural pathways," Sarah explained, excitement building despite the crisis. "If we can replicate the patterns we found using Nyx's bioluminescence, maybe we can communicate with it directly. Not through digital signals, but through organic light patterns." The chamber erupted in objections about safety protocols and untested theories, but Sarah pressed on. "We don't have time for proper procedures. Sometimes humans have to trust their instincts." Working quickly, she directed Nyxis in generating specific light patterns based on her hand-drawn diagrams. The artifact's pulses began to synchronize with the bioluminescent signals, its energy emissions changing frequency. Station orbital decay accelerating, Zenith 9 warned. 38 minutes until critical failure. Sarah adjusted the patterns, remembering how she used to communicate with octopi in Earth's marine laboratories. Simple patterns first, then gradually increasing complexity. The artifact's pulses shifted again, matching their rhythm perfectly. It's a dialogue, she breathed. Not digital or quantum, just simple light and shadow. Like how Earth's earliest organisms communicated. Slowly, the artifact's defensive energy pulse began to subside. Station systems flickered back to life as the quantum interference faded. Around the chamber, enhanced researchers reconnected with their neural interfaces, their relief palpable. Emergency containment restored, Zenith 9 announced. Station systems returning to normal parameters. Sarah stepped back from the containment field, her hands shaking with adrenaline. She had just proven that sometimes the simplest solution was the best, a lesson humanity had learned through millennia of solving problems without advanced technology. Perhaps, Nixis said, bioluminescence now glowing strongly, we have become too dependent on our enhancements. We forgot that intelligence exists in many forms. The artifact floated serenely in its containment field, its surface now rippling with subtle patterns that mimicked Nixis' lights. They had established first contact with a predecessor consciousness, not through quantum computers or neural interfaces, but through the most basic form of communication, a simple pattern of light and dark, understood by every living thing. Sarah smiled, feeling the deep pride in her unmodified human mind. Sometimes the oldest tools were the best ones, and humanity's primitive abilities had just saved humanity's most advanced research station. After establishing basic communication with the artifact, Station Omega's research team began the delicate process of deeper interaction. The artifact's surface had started to change, developing microscopic structures that responded to their bioluminescent signals. Sarah watched through an isolation field as the dark material shifted and flowed like liquid mercury. Molecular analysis shows increasing complexity, reported Dr. Venn, a Vex researcher whose crystalline form sparkled with data patterns. The artifact appears to be adapting. Sarah frowned, noticing something odd about the new formations. Those structures, they look almost like cellular membranes, like it's trying to build something biological. Before anyone could respond, the artifact's surface suddenly rippled violently. A fine mist of particles escaped through the containment field's quantum barriers, dispersing through the laboratory before the emergency protocols could activate. Containment breach. Zenith 9's mechanical form moved with incredible speed, initiating emergency lockdown. Unknown biological agent detected. The enhanced researchers immediately activated their internal defense systems, their bodies glowing with artificial immunity responses. But Sarah had no such protections. Only her natural human immune system stood between her and whatever the artifact had released. Quarantine protocols engaging, Nixis announced, their bioluminescence dimming with concern. Dr. Hayes, your unmodified biology, you are at extreme risk. Sarah felt her heart racing, but forced herself to remain calm. What exactly are we dealing with? The particles appear to be some form of engineered microorganism, Venn reported, their crystalline surface analyzing the air. Unlike anything in our databases, our enhanced immune systems are barely keeping it contained. To everyone's surprise, Sarah laughed. You know what this reminds me of? Cordyceps. It's a fungus on Earth that infects insects. These particles are behaving similarly, trying to interface with biological systems. The research team watched in horror as their enhanced immune systems began to falter. The predecessor particles were adapting faster than their technological defenses could respond. One by one, her colleagues began to show signs of infection, their enhanced bodies struggling against an enemy that could evolve faster than their programmed responses. But Sarah remained unaffected. "This is fascinating," she said, checking her vital signs on a portable scanner. "The particles aren't attacking my cells. If anything, they're ignoring me completely." Nixus, fighting against the infection's spread, managed to pulse out a question. How is this possible? Think about it, Sarah explained, excitement overriding her fear. Your enhanced immune systems are like perfect machines. They respond the same way every time. But human immunity is chaotic, adaptable. We've evolved alongside countless pathogens, developing complex, unpredictable defense mechanisms. She quickly moved to a research terminal, studying the infection patterns. Your enhanced systems are too perfect, too predictable. This ancient pathogen can anticipate and counter their responses. But human immunity is messy, complicated. Millions of years of random mutations and adaptations. We're basically biological chaos engines. Can you help us? Ven's crystalline form had begun to cloud, their perfect structure compromised by the infection. Sarah nodded, already forming a plan. If I can isolate my immune response to these particles, we might be able to synthesize a treatment. Sometimes, the most primitive solution is the most effective. Working quickly, she began extracting samples of her own blood, watching through a microscope as her natural immune cells engaged with the ancient pathogen. The dance of biological warfare that played out was fascinating. Her immune system didn't try to fight the particles directly, but rather created an environment where they couldn't function effectively. Look at this, she called to Zenith 9, who could still operate the lab equipment. My immune system isn't killing the pathogen, it's confusing it. All those primitive redundancies and seemingly wasteful processes in human biology are actually creating a kind of protective chaos. Hours passed as they worked to synthesize a treatment based on human immune responses. Sarah's unmodified biology, shaped by Earth's harsh evolutionary pressures, proved to be the perfect defense against the predecessor pathogen. The treatment worked by introducing controlled biological chaos into the enhanced systems, making them less perfect but more resilient. As her colleagues recovered, Sarah couldn't help but reflect on the irony. The most advanced beings in the galaxy had been saved by the messy, inefficient, but incredibly adaptable human immune system. Perhaps there was something to be said for leaving some things in their natural state. Evolution, she mused, watching the artifact's surface calm as the last of the pathogen was neutralized, is a remarkable engineer. Sometimes the best solutions aren't the most elegant ones. 1 month after the pathogen incident, Sarah stood before the full Galactic Council in their vast chamber aboard Station Omega. The artifact floated in a special containment field behind her, its surface now alive with shifting patterns that mimicked the bioluminescent lights of the chamber. The council members, representatives of the galaxy's most advanced species, regarded her with a mix of curiosity and newfound respect. Even the most skeptical among them could no longer dismiss humanity as merely primitive. Dr. Hayes, began the council leader, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix. Your discoveries have forced us to reevaluate many of our fundamental assumptions. Please proceed with your findings. Sarah took a deep breath, facing the assembled wisdom of 1,000 worlds. The predecessor artifact isn't just a repository of information. It's a warning and a gift. She gestured to the shifting patterns on the artifact's surface. Through our continued communication, we've learned that the predecessors didn't vanish because of some catastrophic event. They made a choice. They saw where pure technological advancement was leading them, and they chose a different path. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as Sarah continued. They didn't transcend biology. They merged with it. The artifact contains the consciousness of one of their scientists, preserved not to record their achievements, but to warn future civilizations about the dangers of abandoning their biological heritage. The chamber's lights dimmed as Sarah activated a holographic display. The predecessors discovered what we proved during our crisis, that perfect systems are vulnerable systems. Nature's seeming inefficiencies, our redundancies, our chaos, our ability to improvise, these aren't weaknesses to be engineered away. They're essential survival traits. She turned to face the council directly. Look at what we discovered. My human pattern recognition saw what quantum computers missed. Our primitive communication methods worked when advanced systems failed. My unmodified immune system resisted a pathogen that overwhelmed enhanced defenses. These aren't coincidences. The artifact pulsed in harmony with her words, its patterns becoming more complex. The predecessors learned that the path to true advancement isn't about transcending our biological nature. It's about understanding and embracing it. They didn't die out. They evolved into something that merged the best of both worlds, becoming beings we wouldn't even recognize as life. "And what do you propose we do with this knowledge?" asked a Vex council member, their crystalline form refracting the chamber's light. Sarah smiled. "I propose we learn from both the past and the present. Humanity's primitive traits aren't flaws to be engineered away. They're valuable adaptations shaped by billions of years of evolution. Instead of trying to perfect ourselves through pure technology, we should study how natural systems solve problems." She gestured to Nixis and her other colleagues from the research team. "We've already begun. The new hybrid immune systems we developed, combining enhanced defenses with the controlled chaos of human immunity, are more resilient than either system alone. It's just the beginning." The artifact's surface erupted in a dazzling display of patterns, as if emphasizing her point. The predecessors left us this message because they saw this moment coming. They knew that eventually, a species would arise that still maintained its connection to its biological origins while reaching for the stars. That's humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not our technology or our achievements, but our ability to bridge worlds. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity, the newcomers, the primitive species, had unlocked secrets that had eluded the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Their very primitiveness had proven to be their greatest strength. "The galaxy is entering a new age," Sarah concluded. "Not one of pure technological advancement or biological purity, but a true synthesis of both. Humanity doesn't need to catch up to the rest of the galaxy. We need to help guide it toward a future that embraces both our natural heritage and our technological potential." As the council began their deliberations, Sarah watched the artifact's shifting patterns with a sense of profound satisfaction. Humanity had found its place among the stars not by abandoning their nature, but by embracing it. Their supposed weaknesses had proven to be their greatest strengths, and now they would help guide galactic civilization toward a future that balanced advancement with wisdom. The time of looking down on primitive species was over. The age of synthesis had begun, and humanity would help lead the way.